Have you ever read a book that felt less like a story and more like a test for your own mind? You know, a book that deliberately tries to pull the rug out from under you? Well, today we're diving into one of those rare literary labyrinths that, believe it or not, feels more relevant now than ever, Iain Banks' masterpiece, Walking on Glass.
And believe me, that is not an exaggeration. Banks literally constructed this thing to push you right to the edge, to make you question the very fabric of the reality you're reading. And yeah, maybe even the one you're living in.
So you might be thinking, okay, why a novel from the 80s? That's a fair question. It's because we are now living in a world of curated social media feeds, digital avatars, and AI-generated everything that completely blurs the line between what's authentic and what's artificial. Banks was wrestling with this exact question, what is real, decades ago, and his insights are, frankly, startlingly prophetic for our time.
Now, the absolute key to unlocking Walking on Glass is to stop trying to read it like a normal story. You've got to think of it more like a puzzle box, one that the author hands directly to you. It's got 3 totally distinct parts, and our job, as the reader, is to figure out how they all fit together, hopefully before our own minds start to fray.
So let's lay all the pieces out on the table, shall we? We're going to look at the 3 main narrative threads that make up this book. Now, on the surface, they seem to have absolutely nothing to do with each other. But that, my friends, is the genius of the trap that Banks sets for us.
All right, our first piece of the puzzle is a guy named Graham Park. He's our anchor, really. He's the character whose world feels the most familiar, the most grounded in a reality we all recognize.
Graham's living in a version of London that's pretty recognizable. But this guy is just crippled by an obsessive love and this deep, sinking feeling of social failure. His story is this really powerful look at how our own internal monologues, the paranoia, the anxieties, the kind that can get amplified by endlessly scrolling through other people's perfect lives online, can completely sabotage our real lives from the inside out.
Okay, now let's shift gears to our second character, the much more, let's say, enigmatic Steven Grout. This is where reality really starts to warp and get slippery. Grout is just stuck. He's trapped in this surreal, almost featureless landscape. He feels like a pawn in a game he doesn't understand, doomed to repeat the same actions over and over again. His story perfectly captures that terrifying feeling of being just an actor in a play that's already been written for you. Stuck in some inescapable loop of history or fate. A feeling a lot of us get when we're in a dead-end job or a life path that just doesn't feel like our own.
And for our final piece, Banks just throws us completely into the deep end. We're talking a high-concept science fiction story that seems to come out of absolutely nowhere.
I mean, suddenly we've got warring intergalactic empires, secret agents, and characters trapped in these bizarre, impossible prisons made out of pure concepts instead of walls. It honestly feels like you picked up a totally different book by mistake. But pay really close attention to that theme of escape. This whole sci-fi world might just be an incredibly elaborate fantasy, a mental fortress built to escape something far more mundane and way more painful.
So, there we have it. Our 3 pieces. A paranoid guy in London, a man trapped in a historical loop, and a full-blown cosmic war. For most of the book, they just run side by side. And then, Banks starts dropping these little clues, and the puzzle pieces begin to click into place with a truly shocking revelation. This is the question that just starts to eat at you as you're reading. Are these just 3 disconnected stories about alienation, or is there some single hidden logic hiding just beneath the surface, connecting everything?
And here it is, the big one, the twist that just flips the entire novel on its head. These aren't 3 separate stories at all. They are the fragmented, warring perspectives inside one single character's consciousness as it completely breaks down.
And when you look at the evidence laid out like this, you can see the connections so clearly. Graham's real-world isolation and paranoia, that's the psychological source of it all. Steven Grout's feeling of being trapped in history, that becomes this potent metaphor for Graham's own paralysis. And those elaborate conceptual prisons in the sci-fi story, come on, that's the ultimate escape fantasy, a complex metaphor for the prison of Graham's own mind. They are all just echoes of the exact same struggle.
But, and this is why Banks is so brilliant, he leaves us with one final, delicious, mind-bending question. What's the cause and what's the effect here? Is Graham, our guy in London, so broken that he's hallucinating these other worlds? Or is he just a pawn in some massive cosmic game, with his reality being manipulated by those sci-fi agents? The book never gives you a straight answer. It forces you to decide.
So why does any of this matter to us today in our own lives?
because this complex, literary puzzle is actually a profound metaphor for how we construct our own realities. Let's break down how this builds into a practical lesson we can actually use.
Right? Here's the crucial point. The novel's very structure suggests that if just one of these narratives could win out over the others, the nature of reality itself would change for that character. The lesson for us is huge. We are so often controlled by our dominant stories, the tapes we play in our heads. And if we can consciously change that story, we can actually change our lives. We can actually boil this down into 3 steps. First, just like Graham, we have to identify our own narrative traps. You know, those self-limiting stories we tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough, or things will never get better. Second, we have to realize that we have the power to choose a different reality, to actively rewrite that dominant story. And finally, the book gives us a warning. True freedom isn't found in some elaborate escape fantasy, like a sci-fi universe. It's found by bravely facing the reality we're in and working with it.
And this brings us to the absolutely terrifying and, at the same time, empowering truth at the heart of Walking on Glass. Are you the hero of your story, actively shaping it? Are you the victim, trapped by circumstances you feel you can't control? Or are you the architect, consciously designing the reality you inhabit?
In the end, this novel isn't just a book. It's a test of your perception, and it's a challenge. So, the next time you feel trapped or overwhelmed by the story you feel like you're living in, remember the lessons of Walking on Glass. You have the power to change the narrative. The only real question left is, which role will you choose to play?